I never thought a simple family dinner could shatter everything I believed in. But that night, in the dimly lit kitchen, I saw something that changed my life forever, a secret too dangerous to ignore. Shirley had always been the glue that held her family together. As the eldest sister-in-law, she was the epitome of grace, managing every family gathering with warmth and poise. Her marriage to Mark was stable, if not passionate, built on years of shared routines and unspoken understanding. Their suburban home was often the hub of family dinners, barbecues, and holiday celebrations, a place of comfort and familiarity. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Mark was dependable, if a bit distant, often buried in his work. Shirley filled the gaps with her friends, her book club, and her passion for gardening. To anyone looking in, hers was the kind of life others envied, a picture of stability and contentment. But beneath the calm exterior, there was a growing emptiness. Shirley had begun to feel like a supporting character in her own life, going through the motions without truly being seen. She had convinced herself that it was normal, that every marriage fell into predictable patterns over time. It wasn't until her nephew, Justin, moved in temporarily that things began to shift. Justin was Mark's sister's son, and at 24, he carried a confidence that turned heads wherever he went. He was staying with them while completing a graduate program in the city. From the moment he arrived, his energy filled the house in a way Shirley hadn't anticipated. His laughter echoed through the hallways, his charm lighting up every room he entered. He wasn't just a guest, he was a spark in the otherwise steady rhythm of Shirley's life. Shirley couldn't pinpoint when the subtle shift began. At first, it was harmless, a shared joke, a casual compliment, the way he noticed the little things about her that Mark had long overlooked. But as the days turned into weeks, she found herself lingering in conversations with him, her heart racing in a way she hadn't felt in years. She brushed it off, attributing it to her own restlessness. It wasn't until the night of the family dinner, with Justin and her sister-in-law Donna under the same roof, that Shirley began to realize she wasn't alone in her feelings. Donna's glances toward Justin didn't escape Shirley's notice, and with each passing moment, the air seemed to thicken with unspoken tension. Shirley had no idea that this seemingly ordinary evening would unravel the life she had spent years carefully building. The weeks after the family dinner were anything but ordinary. Shirley found herself more aware of Justin's every movement, every glance, every word. It was as if her mind had betrayed her, focusing on things she shouldn't even notice. The way his hand lingered when he passed her the salad bowl. The way he laughed at her jokes, his eyes lighting up with a warmth she hadn't seen in years. At first, Shirley tried to dismiss her growing unease. "You're imagining things," she told herself. But it wasn't just her imagination. There was something about Justin's demeanor, an energy that was magnetic, pulling her in despite her best efforts to maintain her composure. It wasn't just her, either. Donna's behavior had shifted noticeably since that dinner. She had always been charming, but now her charm seemed more deliberate. Her compliments toward Justin were overly sweet, her laughter just a touch too enthusiastic. And Justin? He seemed aware of it all but played it off effortlessly, his casual confidence hiding any hint of discomfort. One evening, Shirley walked into the living room to find Donna and Justin seated on the couch, their heads bent close as they laughed over something on his phone. The sight sent a pang through her chest, an emotion she refused to name. Clearing her throat, she forced a smile. "What's so funny?" Donna looked up, her expression unreadable. "Oh, nothing. Justin was just showing me some of his travel photos. Did you know he spent a summer backpacking through Europe? Such an adventurous spirit." Shirley nodded, her throat tight as she responded, "That's nice. You must have some incredible stories." Justin's eyes met hers, and for a moment, she thought she saw something there, something more than casual friendliness. But just as quickly, he looked away, his grin easy and unaffected. "It was a great experience," he said. "But nothing beats being here with family." That night, as Shirley lay in bed beside Mark, her mind replayed the scene over and over. She couldn't shake the feeling that Donna's interest in Justin wasn't purely maternal. Worse, she couldn't shake her own reactions, how her heart had raced at Justin's smile, how her chest had tightened when Donna had touched his arm. The following day, Shirley tried to distract herself with errands and chores. But her thoughts kept returning to Justin. She began to notice little things, how he seemed to always be in the same room as her, how his gaze lingered when he thought no one was watching. It was maddening, this dance of stolen glances and unsaid words. Then came the night that cemented her suspicions. Shirley had gone to the kitchen for a glass of water, only to find the door slightly ajar. Inside, she saw Donna and Justin standing close, their voices low. Donna's hand rested on Justin's shoulder, and though their words were indistinct, the tone was unmistakable, intimate, charged. Shirley's stomach churned. She quickly retreated, leaning against the wall to steady herself. What was she feeling? Anger? Jealousy? Confusion? She didn't know, and that scared her more than anything. The following morning, Shirley resolved to confront Donna. But as she opened her mouth to speak, Donna's cheerful demeanor disarmed her. "Good morning, Shirley. Did you sleep well?" Shirley faltered, unable to bring herself to voice her suspicions. Instead, she nodded and forced a tight smile. "Yes, I did." But the tension was impossible to ignore. The house felt like a stage set for a play, every interaction layered with subtext. Shirley's once predictable life was unraveling, each day pulling her further into a web of emotions she couldn't untangle. By now, she wasn't just suspicious, she was terrified. Terrified of what Donna might do, what Justin might feel, and most of all, what she was beginning to feel herself. Shirley had always thought of herself as someone in control of her emotions, her actions, her life. But control was slipping through her fingers like sand, and she didn't know how to stop it. Each day, the tension between her, Justin, and Donna seemed to grow, like a storm building on the horizon. It was small moments at first. A brush of fingers when handing him a dish, his lingering gaze when she entered the room, or the way his voice softened when he spoke to her. Shirley told herself it was nothing, that she was imagining things. But the way her pulse quickened and her cheeks flushed told a different story. One evening, Shirley found herself in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Justin entered, his presence immediately commanding the small space. "Need help?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes filled with something else, something Shirley couldn't name but felt all too clearly. "I've got it," she replied, her voice a little too high-pitched. But Justin didn't leave. Instead, he leaned against the counter, watching her with a half-smile. "You've been quiet lately," he said, his voice low. "Is everything okay?" Shirley froze for a moment, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. She wanted to tell him everything, to ask him what he was doing, to beg him to stop or to keep going. But instead, she forced a laugh. "Just busy, that's all." Justin stepped closer, his hand lightly brushing hers as he reached for the knife on the counter. The contact was brief, accidental, or so she told herself, but it left her skin tingling. Her heart raced as he began chopping vegetables, standing so close she could feel the heat of his body. "You know," he said, not looking at her, "I think you don't give yourself enough credit." "For what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "For everything. You hold this family together, Shirley. I don't know how you do it." His words caught her off guard, and she turned to look at him, her heart pounding. The sincerity in his voice, the way his eyes met hers, it was too much. She opened her mouth to respond, but the sound of footsteps in the hallway made her step back quickly. It was Donna. "Am I interrupting something?" Donna asked, her tone light but her eyes sharp. Shirley shook her head, her cheeks burning. "No, we were just cooking," Justin finished smoothly, flashing Donna a grin. "Want to join us?" Donna's gaze flicked between them, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Sure," she said, stepping into the kitchen. The air grew thick with unspoken words as the three of them worked side by side. Later that evening, Shirley found herself alone in the living room, sipping a glass of wine and trying to calm her racing thoughts. Justin appeared at the doorway, his damp hair indicating he had just showered. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice soft. She shook her head, gesturing for him to sit. He took the seat across from her, his presence filling the room. "You seemed distracted tonight," he said, his tone probing. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, but her voice wavered. Justin leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "Shirley," he said, his voice gentle but insistent, "you don't have to pretend with me." Her breath caught. "I don't know what you mean." Yes, you do. His gaze didn't waver, and she felt herself unraveling under its intensity. Before she could respond, Donna entered the room, her robe loosely tied and her expression unreadable. She sat beside Justin, placing a hand on his shoulder in a gesture that was casual yet deliberate. Couldn't sleep either, she said with a faint smile. The atmosphere grew heavier, the tension between the three of them almost suffocating. Shirley clenched her wineglass, her mind racing. Donna's hand lingered on Justin's shoulder, her smile just a bit too knowing. Shirley wanted to scream, to run, to do anything to escape the tangled web they were weaving. Life's funny, isn't it? Donna said suddenly, her tone light but her words weighted. How it throws us into situations we never saw coming. Shirley forced a smile. It certainly is. Donna's gaze lingered on her, as if searching for cracks in her composure. Nights like these, Donna continued, make you wonder about all the things you never say out loud. Justin's expression was unreadable, but his gaze flicked between the two women, as if waiting for someone to break the silence. Shirley stood abruptly, setting her glass down with a clink. I think I'll head to bed. Donna's smile didn't waver. Sweet dreams, Shirley, she said, her tone almost mocking. Shirley fled to her room, shutting the door and leaning against it, her heart pounding. The image of Donna's hand on Justin's shoulder burned in her mind. She didn't know what was happening, but she knew one thing for certain, it was spiraling out of control. Shirley woke the next morning with a sense of dread that hung over her like a storm cloud. The tension in the house was unbearable, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to break. Her thoughts were consumed by the events of the previous night, Donna's cryptic words, Justin's intense gaze, and her own tumultuous emotions. She spent the morning avoiding both Justin and Donna, finding refuge in mundane tasks like folding laundry and organizing the pantry. But even these distractions couldn't quell the storm raging within her. When lunchtime rolled around, she found herself seated at the dining table with both of them. The silence was deafening, broken only by the clink of utensils against plates. So, Donna said finally, her tone deceptively casual, any plans for today? Shirley shook her head, keeping her eyes on her plate. Just catching up on chores. Chores, Donna echoed with a small laugh. You work too hard, Shirley. You should let someone else take care of you for once. The words, innocuous as they were, felt loaded. Shirley glanced up to find Donna watching her with a sly smile. Justin, meanwhile, seemed focused on his food, but Shirley didn't miss the way his jaw tightened. After the meal, Shirley retreated to her bedroom, desperate for solitude. She tried to lose herself in a book, but the words blurred on the page. A soft knock on her door startled her, and her heart leapt when she heard Justin's voice. Shirley, can I come in? She hesitated before responding. I'm a little busy right now. Please, he said, his voice low. I need to talk to you. Against her better judgment, she opened the door. Justin stepped inside, his expression serious. He closed the door behind him, and Shirley felt her pulse quicken. What is it? She asked, keeping her tone as neutral as possible. Justin took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. I can't keep doing this. Pretending everything's fine when it's not. Shirley's heart pounded in her chest. What are you talking about? You know what I mean, he said, stepping closer. There's something between us, Shirley. I know you feel it too. She took a step back, shaking her head. Justin, this is ridiculous. You're imagining things. Am I? He asked, his gaze intense. Because I don't think I am. And I don't think you believe that either. Before she could respond, the door swung open, and Donna stood there, her expression unreadable. Am I interrupting? She asked, her tone dripping with false innocence. Shirley froze, her cheeks burning. No, we were just talking, Justin said quickly, his voice steady. What do you need, Donna? Donna stepped into the room, her eyes flicking between the two of them. I couldn't find either of you downstairs, so I thought I'd check here. Seems I was right. Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Shirley felt trapped, the walls of the room closing in around her. We were just discussing some family matters, she said, trying to sound casual. Donna raised an eyebrow, her smile faint. Family matters. Of course. The tension in the room was unbearable. Justin crossed his arms, his posture defensive. Is there something you wanted, Donna? No, she said, her tone light. Just making sure everything's in order. With that, she turned and left, leaving the door ajar. Shirley sank onto the edge of the bed, her head in her hands. This is a mess, she whispered. Justin knelt in front of her, his voice gentle. Shirley, listen to me. I know this is complicated, but we can't ignore what's happening. She looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. What do you want from me, Justin? This can't happen. It's wrong. Maybe it is, he admitted. But that doesn't change how I feel. Before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Shirley's door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, she saw Donna standing there, watching them with an expression she couldn't read. Donna's eyes met hers, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then Donna smirked, her gaze sharp, and walked away without a word. Shirley felt a chill run down her spine. She knows, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Justin stood, his jaw tightening. Let her. I don't care what she thinks. But Shirley did. The weight of Donna's silent judgment was suffocating. The rest of the day passed in a blur, each moment heavier than the last. That evening, Shirley found herself in the kitchen, nursing a glass of wine and trying to calm her frayed nerves. Donna entered, her smile as sharp as a knife. Rough day, she asked, her tone falsely sympathetic. Shirley didn't respond, keeping her eyes on her glass. Donna stepped closer, her voice lowering. You can't hide forever, Shirley. Secrets like these have a way of coming out. Shirley's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. What do you want, Donna? Donna shrugged, her smile widening. Nothing. Just thought I'd remind you that you're not as good at hiding your feelings as you think. The words hit Shirley like a slap. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Donna turned and left, leaving Shirley alone with her thoughts. That night, as Shirley lay in bed, she couldn't stop replaying the events of the day. The way Justin had looked at her, the way Donna had smirked, the way her own heart had betrayed her. She didn't know how much longer she could keep this up. Something had to give. And when it did, Shirley knew, it would change everything. The fallout began the next morning, though not in the way Shirley had anticipated. The house felt heavier, every interaction laced with unspoken tension. Shirley avoided both Justin and Donna, hoping to find some semblance of normalcy. But normalcy was impossible now. It started with Donna. She cornered Shirley in the hallway, her arms crossed and a faint smirk on her lips. We need to talk, she said, her tone firm. Shirley froze. About what? Donna raised an eyebrow, her smile fading. Don't play dumb, Shirley. I'm not blind, and I'm certainly not stupid. I've seen the way you look at Justin. And the way he looks at you. Shirley's heart sank. Donna, you're mistaken. No, I'm not, Donna interrupted, her voice cutting. I know what's going on, and if you think you can keep it hidden, you're wrong. Shirley's stomach churned. What do you want from me? Donna studied her for a moment, her expression unreadable. I want you to stop, she said finally. Before you ruin everything. Shirley wanted to argue, to deny everything, but she couldn't find the words. Donna's gaze softened slightly, but her tone remained firm. This is a dangerous game you're playing, Shirley. And it's not just you who'll get hurt. With that, Donna walked away, leaving Shirley standing in the hallway, her thoughts spinning. She knew Donna was right. Whatever this was with Justin, it had to stop. But the mere thought of cutting him off left her feeling hollow. The confrontation with Donna set the tone for the rest of the day. Shirley avoided Justin, retreating to her room to sort through the mess in her mind. But Justin wasn't one to be ignored. That evening, he knocked on her door, his voice soft but insistent. Shirley, we need to talk. She hesitated before opening the door, her heart pounding. Justin, I can't do this anymore. Can't do what? He asked, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. This, she said, gesturing between them. Whatever this is. It's too much. Justin's jaw tightened. You don't mean that. Yes, I do, she said, her voice trembling. This is wrong, Justin. We both know it. Justin took a step closer, his eyes searching hers. It's not wrong to care about someone, Shirley. To want to be with them. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. It is when it destroys everything else. Justin reached out, his hand brushing against hers. We don't have to let it destroy anything. We can figure this out together. Shirley pulled her hand away, her voice breaking. You don't understand. Donna knows. And it's only a matter of time before Mark finds out. This isn't just about us, Justin. It's about everyone. Justin's expression hardened. So, what? You're just going to pretend this never happened? Pretend I don't mean anything to you? Shirley's silence was answer enough. Justin exhaled sharply, stepping back. Fine. If that's what you want. It's not what I want, she whispered, her voice barely audible. It's what I have to do. Justin left without another word, the sound of the door closing behind him echoing in her ears. Shirley sank onto the bed, her body trembling with the weight of her decision. The days that followed were tense and awkward. Justin avoided her, his once warm demeanor replaced by cold indifference. Donna, on the other hand, seemed almost triumphant, her knowing smirks a constant reminder of what Shirley had lost. Mark, oblivious to the turmoil brewing under his roof, carried on as if everything was normal. But Shirley couldn't escape the guilt gnawing at her. Every glance at Justin, every shared space, was a painful reminder of what could never be. It all came to a head one evening during dinner. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the clatter of silverware against plates. Shirley couldn't take it anymore. She set her fork down, her hands trembling. I need to say something, she began, her voice shaking. Justin looked up, his expression unreadable. Donna raised an eyebrow, her smirk fading into something more serious. Mark glanced at her, his brow furrowed. What is it? Shirley hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She stopped, her throat tightening. I've been feeling overwhelmed lately. I think I need some time away. Mark's frown deepened. Away? From what? From everything, she said, her voice cracking. I just need to clear my head. Donna's gaze bore into her, but she said nothing. Justin's jaw tightened, his hands clenched into fists. Mark, though concerned, nodded slowly. If that's what you need, Shirley, I understand. That night, Shirley packed a bag and left the house. As she drove away, tears streamed down her face, her heart breaking with every mile. She didn't know where she was going or how long she'd be gone, but she knew she couldn't stay. Sometimes, escaping was the only way to survive. The small seaside town Shirley retreated to was quiet and unassuming, a place where she could disappear and finally catch her breath. She rented a modest room in a bed and breakfast overlooking the ocean and spent her days walking along the shore, letting the crashing waves drown out the noise in her head. The solitude was both a relief and a burden, giving her space to think but leaving her alone with the weight of her choices. For the first few days, she avoided checking her phone, unable to face the messages she knew would be waiting. When she finally did, she found only 2 texts, one from Mark, asking her to call him, and another from Justin, simply saying, I hope you're okay. Donna, unsurprisingly, had stayed silent. The simplicity of Justin's message hit Shirley harder than she expected. She thought about replying, about telling him she was fine, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. What could she possibly say? That she missed him? That she regretted pushing him away? That she didn't know how to reconcile what her heart wanted with what her conscience demanded? Instead, she buried her phone at the bottom of her bag and returned to the ocean, searching for answers she wasn't sure she'd find. As the days turned into weeks, Shirley began to feel a sense of clarity. She realized she had been living her life in pieces, one part for her family, one part for herself, and now this hidden, tangled part with Justin. It wasn't sustainable, and it wasn't fair to anyone, least of all herself. For years, she had been pretending that contentment was enough, that her quiet, stable life with Mark was all she needed. But Justin had shattered that illusion, forcing her to confront feelings she had long buried. She thought about Mark and their marriage. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. It was safe, predictable, a partnership rather than a love story. She had been coasting, and it was only now, in the aftermath of everything, that she saw how much of herself she had given up to maintain the status quo. And then there was Justin. What they had shared, if it could even be called that, was fleeting but intense, a spark that had reignited something in her she thought was long gone. But sparks, as powerful as they are, can't sustain a fire on their own. They burn bright and fast, leaving nothing but ash in their wake. Was that what she wanted? A brief moment of passion at the expense of everything else? Shirley didn't have all the answers, but she knew one thing for certain: she couldn't keep running. She had to face the mess she had left behind, even if it meant confronting her own mistakes and the pain she had caused. When she returned home, the house felt different, quieter. Mark greeted her with a mix of relief and confusion. "I was starting to worry," he said, his tone gentle but probing. "I'm sorry," Shirley replied, her voice steady. "I needed time to think." Mark nodded, his expression unreadable. "And? Did you figure out what you needed to?" "Yes," she said, meeting his gaze. "I think we both need to be honest with each other about what we want, about where we're going. I don't think we've been doing that for a long time." Mark looked away, the weight of her words sinking in. "You're right," he admitted. "I think we've both been avoiding a lot." Their conversation was painful but necessary. For the first time in years, they talked openly about their marriage, their frustrations, and their fears. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. As for Justin, Shirley decided to let him go. She wrote him a letter, pouring out everything she couldn't say in person: the confusion, the guilt, the gratitude. She thanked him for reminding her what it felt like to be seen, but made it clear that their connection couldn't continue. It wasn't fair to him or to herself. Weeks later, as Shirley sat in her garden, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she felt a strange sense of peace. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was moving forward, not running away. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is face the truth, but it's also the only way to grow. Shirley knew she couldn't change the past, but she could learn from it, and that was enough. If you were in Shirley's shoes, what would you have done? Could you walk away from everything, or would you give in to temptation? Share your thoughts in the comments below, we'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more gripping stories like this one. The next story will leave you speechless, you won't want to miss it. Stay tuned, and see you next time.